This is a special presentation of Money, Power, and Politics.
Well, this hearing of stuff you won't believe you're hearing will come to order. Cue up the Capitol, Lady Liberty, and sweetheart deal with China.
Our Postal Service is giving steep discounts to China in a deal the politicians don't even know about.
That's mind-boggling.
It's politics, like the law that gives tax breaks to disabled first responders that disqualifies disabled first responders.
So you did not know this was excluding these first responders when you voted for it?
I don't believe that that's something that was discussed.
We'll discuss it, along with the state program to fight poverty that pumps a fortune into theme parks, and other tax deals for jobs that don't appear to bring jobs.
Things like this happen, and they get away with it.
I'm Craig Patrick, and this is our Government at Work. And by work, we don't always mean work.
The business of the Senate concluded early today.
Like the time we caught the chair of the Senate Rules Committee leaving work early, claiming their work was finished.
The business of the Senate concluded early today.
While her colleague voted for her, making it look as if she was still there, she said by mistake.
I can understand how they may say that it looks sloppy.
Or the time we caught the senator who sponsored tighter voting rules for all of us, voting and then voting again in the name of an absent adversary who was out of town for his mother's funeral.
It just tells me that somebody screwed up somewhere.
Or the time we dug into the education budget and found someone slipped in a road project that spent $500,000 for a dead-end road to nowhere.
A dead-end road with a gate on it.
Do you know who slipped in that road to nowhere? We also don't know how well many of the state's current job deals are going because our government keeps that secret. We've certainly seen some doozies in years past. The state once gave, for example, $20 million to a company called Digital Domain because it promised jobs. And then the company collapsed and the jobs disappeared. There's the CEO of Digital Domain. We don't know how well state leaders reviewed his business plan. We asked him about it. Want to hear his business plan?
We showed up with a plan to lose money.
That'll do it. His plan worked. And it makes you wonder about other tax deals and tax breaks and what would happen if we put our state leaders on the stand.
Next, we join the Double Talk Committee for testimony on state tax deals.
So a company promises jobs and you give them money. Oh, sure. How much do you need? No, you mean you just give out the money before they deliver the jobs? Sometimes thought they could use some cash. But what if they shut down and take off with all the money? Oh, we can sue them. A bankrupt company? We can accuse them of being rude? Oh, okay, so how does the governor come up with his jobs goals? Hold on, let me think.
It'll be the 700,000, plus what would be normal.
It's on top of that. On top of what normal growth would be. I don't know who said that.
700,000 on top of.
No.
Pass. Okay, so what's your approach to fighting high crime and poverty? Oh yeah, we give millions in tax credits to popular theme parks. Theme parks? Yeah, and popular resorts not far from the golf courses. Huh. Is there really that much crime and poverty over there? Yeah, we've been asking about that. Is there high crime on the golf courses?
Not on the golf courses, but we have seen where there's securities and there's security gates in these neighborhoods, but people are coming off from the lakes and on top of the golf courses to come into the neighborhood.
Oh, so there's trespassing?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Well, there's that.
Yes, there's trespassing.
So yes, that's what we've heard. Yeah, we may need to take a closer look at that. Yeah. Other tax deals too? We do. Who's we? Let's call it we the people.
I think it's just a few that abuse the system.
This is Gary Joyner, though he's been called by many names we can't repeat.
There was quite a few F-bombs as he was leaving.
F-bombs?
Oh, yes.
He's Pasco County's property appraiser, and he got cursed out for saying you should not get tax breaks for farming if you don't use any of the land in question for farming.
This right here is a little over 50.
50 acres.
50.
He said his staff has monitored this land in Wesley Chapel for the past 2 years.
I haven't been able to find any cattle on it. We've walked the property, dated it, pictures, everything.
But when he tried to yank the tax break for farming, the owner appealed and won.
And he agrees there's no farming.
Oh, he admitted it. they'll continue to receive ag the rest of the time they own this property, and really there's nothing I can do about it.
It goes back to how our legislature wrote the law granting tax breaks for commercial agriculture.
What are the specifications?
You know, there is no set standard. How is that?
So there are no specifications?
Technically, no. It's just a wide open, big gray area.
Now, tax breaks for farmland where you don't see any farming is just the first stop on our tour.
Things like this happen, and they get away with it.
Pasco tax collector Mike Fasano picks up our next stop with state tax breaks for jobs.
This is something that should never have been taken up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Florida is open for business.
Yes, in Governor Scott's first year, legislative leaders brought up a jobs plan in the middle of the night.
We're here at 3:30 in the morning.
They called it the single sales factor, but the lawmakers didn't know what it meant.
I don't know the substance of this House bill.
They were tired and reaching for words when supporters said it's not a giveaway.
And this will pay great dividends for the people of Florida.
Mike Fasano was a state senator back then, and he said they passed it because they could not vote against jobs.
The trickle-down effect is not reflected in this bill.
Unless you know exactly what's in the bill, and when something's being done at 3 o'clock in the morning or in the waning hours of session, this is what happens.
We got a big tax break for big business, but when we checked into it, Publix told us it qualified for building stores it had planned to build anyway. Mosaic qualified based on a warehouse and golf resort it decided to build 2 years before the tax break passed. And as we checked with other recipients, we could not find a single new job, and we found the state doesn't even check. A spokeswoman for the governor's jobs department said it does not keep any jobs data on that.
There's no accountability, there's no oversight.
Same goes for the state's maps. We also found the state has not updated its zones for high crime or poverty in decades. So now slumping neighborhoods in Tampa cannot get help.
Volcano Bay is now open!
Well, millions in tax credits to fight poverty and crime have poured into Orlando theme parks and high-end resorts.
I walked around at nighttime, not a problem. I feel safe with the kids.
State House Speaker Richard Corcoran said he's tried to revise the tax credits for poverty and crime, but he says the Senate wouldn't go along.
We don't even go back and reevaluate. So when Universal does go in there and they build and they change that community, and now is it still high crime? We haven't even measured and looked at crime statistics prior to their entry and after their entry to see if that credit should even be in existence anymore. And obviously it shouldn't.
And when we analyzed the map back in 2014, we found the state approved tax credits for a Walmart in Tampa that was not even in an eligible zone. The state's jobs office told us that was a mistake and canceled the credit after we pointed it out.
Lack of oversight seems to be the principal thing here.
Dan Christensen of the Florida Bulldog ought to know. He discovered the state offered tax refunds to Kalashnikov USA while knowing it had ties to a banned Russian weapons company. Christensen obtained the records that had been secret.
The community was kept in the dark as to what exactly this deal was all about.
The record shows state officials knew Kalashnikov USA had a license to manufacture rifles under the brand of Concerned Kalashnikov, which had been blacklisted by the feds. But the state jobs department found no evidence it was violating sanctions.
They didn't look very hard. The sanctions forbid any business dealings with Concerned Kalashnikov. And obviously having a license agreement is a form of doing business with it.
In the end, the state never paid out because the company in Pompano did not deliver on its jobs promise.
You can see that there's a lot of man hours that went into creating this, and it was all for nothing.
And how many jobs did it actually create?
None. None.
Our state government has since moved on to other secret job deals while it fights poverty and crime by enriching theme parks, while Kerry Joyner keeps looking for cows or crops. Until the politicians or voters demand something more, this, he says, is what you get.
No squash?
No squash.
Strawberries?
No strawberries.
Weeds?
We gotta have those. We do have that.
When they say Florida is opening the door to weed farms, is this what they're talking about?
No, I don't believe so. I'm not sure this would satisfy their needs.
The Florida Department of Economic Opportunity said it performs its due diligence before approving tax incentives, and jobs data for the single sales factor break is not required because a company's ability to participate is based on expenditures, which it does track. Coming up, see how the United States government may be unwittingly helping China run American small business out of business. It's a little-known deal our politicians don't know about or don't want to talk about. American companies are losing jobs to companies in China, and our federal government is helping them do it.
The Florida Candy Factory cranks out thousands of old-fashioned mints from vintage machines that have been clicking and clanking for more than 100 years.
Our oldest KH that produces our Angel Mint dates back to 1911, and our newest of which is 1925.
Why don't you just buy new machines?
Well, the truth of the matter is we can't afford it.
This would be the story of how efficient, persistent, and passionate a businessman like Scott Grimm can be.
We're what made America great, the small mom and pops.
But this is mostly the story of how this factory and many others get set up to fail and burned by our own government.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
They did everything right and still do. They boil sugar in kettles and pour it in slabs and spin it with flavor. They press it and feed it, cut it, wrap it, then haul it off for shipping as mince and taffy.
So we were working quite heavy, and we did a lot of packing for these theme parks.
Yes, they took off by supplying and shipping candy for the major theme parks in Florida. But our government gave a sweetheart deal to China, allowing Chinese companies to mail products from 8,000 miles away for a fraction of the price American companies like the Florida Candy Factory have to pay just to mail it down the street.
Left us sort of out in the cold.
The theme parks took the cheaper shipping costs from China and pulled the plug on Scott. He had to cut from 25 workers down to 4.
Those were some of the hardest days that we had to go through.
And this goes far beyond the Florida Candy Factory. Records show the U.S. Postal Service is losing money by giving shipping discounts to our biggest economic competitor.
I'd love to hear from the politicians as to how is that possible.
Good luck with that. We tried asking President Trump and the 8 U.S. House lawmakers in the Tampa Bay region, and Senator Marco Rubio, and Senator Bill Nelson.
What is the issue that you're talking about?
At least he asked us to explain it and told his office to get back to us, but his office never did.
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
Meanwhile, his challenger, Governor Rick Scott, ignored our question altogether.
Oh, gosh.
Politicians either don't want to talk about this or they don't even know about it.
I don't think that anyone had any clue about this.
Here at Mighty Mug, we make the most innovative coffee mug on the planet.
Jamie Smaldone is the CEO of Mighty Mug, a mug designed to not tip over. The Postal Service charges him around $6 to ship each one from his warehouse in New Jersey to customers around the nation. And 6 months ago, he discovered Chinese companies were ripping off his ads and selling knockoffs.
One that really stood out to us was one that was $5.69 with free shipping all the way from China.
As he dug into it, he discovered, as we did, the little-known agency called the Universal Postal Union. In short, we struck a deal with this postal arm of the United Nations to subsidize mail deliveries for less developed nations. And the Universal Postal Union considers China, the world's largest e-commerce market, to be less developed.
Just to put it in perspective, China is in the same basket as Cuba and Gabon and a lot of these like super primitive economic societies.
So we agreed to pay higher rates to send our products to China, crushing American exports, while the U.S. Postal Service has taken mounting losses, more than $135 million a year, subsidizing mail from other nations, particularly China, crushing American merchants.
You don't think that something so stupid could exist in our government.
Jamie says that's $6.30 for shipping a Mighty Mug from New Jersey, or $1.40 to get the knockoff from Shanghai. And when he started asking the politicians about this, he said most had no idea.
It's an insane thing, that's for sure.
while Mighty Mug, Florida Candy Factory, and so many others are paying for it.
And I've had more times than not customers call me saying that I'm ripping them off somehow because I'm charging too much for freight.
Leaving us with something American entrepreneurs thought they would never have to say in America.
We have ingenuity, we have hard workers. We just need the same opportunity, the same chance.
As China.
As China.
The U.S. Postal Service is raising rates for international deliveries, but manufacturers say it is not enough. We found one lawmaker who opposes the discounts for China. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana wants to end them. Coming up, voters passed a tax break for disabled first responders, but then state lawmakers disqualified many who need help the most. Voters gave permanently and totally disabled first responders living in Florida a property tax break, but many have discovered the catch. Appreciation for saving a man's life.
Yep.
When you read the letters in Jim Bragg's work file,
Saving the life of a gunshot victim.
Yeah.
After a while, they all start to sound the same.
Knowing what to do in an emergency situation, this man's life was saved.
As a policeman, he was at the top of his game. Until that high-speed chase, when the suspect plunged into traffic and threw Jim from his motorcycle.
So this is your back and leg plunging into the car.
Right.
And see how the motorcycle tore apart? It's because the motorcycle plunged into him.
Why'd she cover you with a sheet?
She thought I was dead.
It shattered bones, crunched his spine, and gave him brain damage that wiped out much of his short-term memory.
And I forget where I'm going or why, and what I'm looking for, that type of stuff.
Now, meet former policeman Jim Bomfort. He also saved lives and continued his family's long tradition of service.
And this here is my father.
That goes all the way back to our nation's founding and the fight to preserve it.
My great-grandfather fought in the Battle of Gettysburg.
Bomford was at the top of his game until he was sickened by exposure to toxins, and a bad guy dragged him from a car and crunched his legs.
When I opened up the car door, grabbed him by the shirt, put the car in the gear, and the car started moving forward.
Now his legs are in braces, and his arms can't stop shaking.
If it's at rest, it's doing it.
Both men are permanently and totally disabled according to the federal government, and both helped inspire and pass Amendment 3, which gives disabled first responders an exemption on their property taxes.
Because these are the most wounded of our wounded.
But then Jim Bomford, Jim Bragg, and many others discovered the catch.
No property tax relief at all. In fact, our taxes have gone up the last 3 years.
The legislature tacked on restrictions after it passed, stuff that was not in the amendment that now makes most disabled first responders ineligible.
They don't tell anybody that they changed the rules in midstream and didn't even publicize it, so nobody knows.
The legislature's restrictions disqualify first responders for different reasons, but one of the big ones states they only qualify if they were injured in this state or in an operation authorized by this state, excluding all who were disabled elsewhere than retired in Florida. Again, that is not how the question on the ballot read.
It said first responders living in Florida.
This former officer shoveled debris from the September 11th attacks to landfills in New York until the toxins made him sick.
They issued mask breathing apparatus for us, and every other week or so they would change the filtration system on the mask, saying they really gave us the wrong one.
The feds say he's now totally disabled, but since he got sick from working in New York, then moved to Florida, he's disqualified.
I ended up with 6 bypasses.
We're blurring his face because he also posed as a hitman for the mafia and Colombian drug cartels, which took him on special assignment to Florida.
I don't know if that counts as working in Florida.
Again, since he was on a New York police payroll when he worked in Florida, it does not count.
I went as far as digging a grave for a person that I was supposed to kill the following morning with a mob guy.
Still does not count, even though his work brought down a number of gangsters and drug lords.
Convincing enough to scare the cartel guys into being afraid of me.
So you're telling me that you intimidated mob leaders into imposing your will on them?
Yes.
You intimidated drug cartels into imposing your will on them?
Yes.
Ever think maybe you need to get into character and visit your state lawmakers?
If I pay them a visit in the middle of the night, I'm sure they'll sign and change the law. But
He's joking about that, though we have seen how they change laws in the middle of the night.
At 3:30 in the morning.
Not knowing exactly what they're changing.
I don't know the substance of this House bill.
In this case, the lawmakers appear to have been unaware of what they were passing in the middle of the day.
It wasn't clear, I think.
So you did not know this was excluding these first responders when you voted for it?
I don't believe that that's something that was discussed.
Senator David Simmons says he'll push for a bill to lift the restrictions and hope it does not get changed in the last-minute rush when, again, lawmakers admit they don't know what they're voting on.
I don't understand a system that rushes bills through without giving people time to read them.
So let me get this straight. You're advising that the lawmakers need to know what they're voting on before they vote on it?
Yeah, logically, yes, that's what they should do.
Senator Simmons tried to remove the exclusions this year, but failed. Coming up, we'll ask the state lawmaker who wrote the exclusions to explain why he did it. Amendment 3 gives disabled first responders a property tax break, but state lawmakers disqualify those who were disabled while serving in agencies outside of Florida. State Representative Larry Metz sponsored those disqualifications, and in a letter to us, he stated that Amendment 3 authorized but did not require the legislature to grant this tax break. And he required Florida-based service as a condition because he said he did not want to subsidize first responders who serve police or fire departments out of state. If you have a tax deal or a loophole you'd like us to look into, please let me know and we'll keep digging. Thank you all for watching.